All right, everybody, it's a huge show today. It's Friday. We're bringing back our heavy hitters for interviews. And today, you're not going to believe it, Shopify CEO and founder Tobi Lütke is back. He's amazing. This is his third or fourth time on the show. We've got a great rapport. He's super honest. He's super candid. We go deep on running companies, scaling companies. My God, what a massive pull forward the pandemic was for Shopify, the stock price, dealing with employees with RSUs underwater. What an amazing interview. He's so thoughtful. This is a must listen. Slow it down, keep it on 1x speed, and you're probably going to want to listen to it twice. Stick with us. This is an amazing episode.
This Week in Startups is brought to you by Spokn. Finally, there is a way to build culture and connection that is designed for remote. Spokn Stories. It's fast, it's async, yet it's human. Check out getspokn.com/twist to get 3 months free. That's GETSPOKN without the E.com/twist. Masterworks is the first company allowing investors exposure into the blue chip artwork asset class. Twist listeners can skip the waitlist by going to masterworks.io/twist. And Helpware helps you outsource the tasks that slow your team down. From data entry to world-class customer support, Helpware can help make you bionic. Go to helpware.com/twist to get $1,000 off your first invoice.
All right, everybody, really excited to have friend of the show, Tobi Lütke, on the program again. How you doing, Tobi?
I'm doing very well. How are you, Jason?
I'm good. It was a crazy summer. Oh, and for people who don't know, Tobi founded Shopify, and he did that in 2004. I met him, I don't know, Chamath and I went up to Canada, and I interviewed you, 10 years ago maybe? You were first on the show. Actually, it was 2013, so it's almost 10 years.
It's true.
And you were on in 2021 as well. And so we've watched the company grow, and it was extraordinary during the pandemic. My Lord, did the company grow. And then you had a quick pullback. It's been a crazy 3 years for the company, huh?
Yeah.
And running it.
It's been a crazy ride. Not for a faint of heart. It's a funny thing. It's like, Shopify is a celebration of entrepreneurship. And so I see no reason for me not going through some kind of dramatized version of it. It's like the roller coaster is, as you know, is what it is. It's like there's high highs and very low lows. And one thing, an observation about building a company as it gets bigger and bigger is that the time between the highs and the lows starts getting shorter and shorter. And sometimes you have multiple ones in the same day. So this has certainly been one of those high oscillation years, if I've ever seen one. Yeah,
it is interesting how, as entrepreneurs, we perceive every year that goes by, this business will become more stable and easier to operate. We'll just be flying at a nice height, and there'll be no turbulence, and everything is going to be stable. And I think that's happened to like 3 businesses in the history of tech, and it happened in the third decade. Like you look at Apple, you look at Microsoft and Google, like, sure, they're on cruise control now, like 3 of them great money printing machines of all time. But then you look at like Airbnb or Facebook or Intel, like chaos, right? It very rarely gets easy, I think is the truth.
Yeah, I wonder what you think about why this is, because like, one sort of, notable thing about the set of places that seem to get more stable and more predictable ends up being that they find like some a very, very good business model that's kind of self-sustaining, or being a government or something where they very slow down too. So I imagine that there's a lot of books and articles written out there is by people who have encountered this. And so people are like their pattern recognition, or like they think it's more common, but that's just an aspect of the only people who have time to write books are the people who find these business models. So there's like an overexposure of this kind of experience. In reality, I mean, this is one cool thing about Shopify is like the millions of entrepreneurs we get to speak to, and like everyone's in the same boat, right? Like it's a crazy thing to do this, and it's hard, but it's also exhilarating. I would be getting pretty bored if things got very stable and predictable. I think you would be too, right?
Of course. I mean, the fact that it's so dynamic, and maybe it has to do with there are some businesses, if they can capture, close to a monopoly or, they've basically got a lock on it, a duopoly. You look at the duopoly of, iOS and Android and the loyalty and their focus. I mean, it's probably some combination of that. Google search, just, and everything else Google does, outside of search, like it's kind of variable. What's been the thing that hasn't changed during this crazy period? Because you have the pandemic, you got the stock market correction, you have a very big competitor who is extremely good at what they do.
Yep.
And they changed who's running the company. And I think, that means you got somebody who's super focused in there running the company, maybe as somebody who wasn't as focused. I'm talking, of course, about Amazon. So through this last 3 years, what has been the thing that hasn't changed? And what has been the thing that's been most challenging?
Yeah, I don't know if that sounds lame, but like, I mean, there's a huge difference between things outside and inside of a company, right? Like it's like inside the company, we've been like, there's a mission that we're following, right? Like, and it's like, we build the best software we know how to build. We are getting information from the rest of the world about like, what should be built, what's needed, what's useful. There were some significant changes around the beginning of the pandemic about like, click to like curbside delivery and these kind of things. But like, largely, like if it was actually with all the craziness and the sort of churn and talking, but the talking was all induced and like it's like mom sending a message saying, "Hey, is this as bad as it sounds?" So like it's just like if it's bad, or is this like what did you guys actually? I remember a lot of people at Shopify said, "Hey, for the first time during this pandemic, my parents actually started being interested in this business I'm part of." So suddenly everyone paid attention, which again, variable outcomes from that. But like we've just sort of, same thing. We celebrate the people who are reaching for independence, and we make the software hopefully vastly better over time. And so the company just keeps getting better. I think it's the best version of that Shopify ever existed by a mile. But externally, people seem to think differently about the company. And like if you sort of overlay stock price on this sort of gradually every day getting a little bit more excellent kind of thing that I perceive internally, and you superimpose with stock prices, like people are very of different minds about how this is going, which is kind of it's an interesting experience by itself, right? Like it's just, I mean, I have this fantastically privileged experience of having, Ron started writing first lines of code on something, which then became a company, which then, eventually became a public company and have a ticker symbol. And now I sort of have seen multiple parts of the business cycle. And I'm pretty, people are always like, how do you deal with all the distraction, over noise, with the pressure and these kind of things? And I'm like, that has never really affected me. So I'm almost like a bit of an observer to the whole thing. And it's just like, it's this like, you kind of get the sense for like, man, how a group ends up forming opinions and like, how is all this reflexive and, anyway, I don't know if that's the answer you bargained for, but like, it's just always, it's an endless fascination to me about like observing these things. And every once in a while, then someone has to remind me saying, hey, you're not just an observer, you're like in this arena. And then exactly. I'm like, okay, yeah, right.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, you have complete information on the business. Where the business is going. So you're in the room where it happens. You're making the decisions with your team. You know the roadmap. You're watching, your customers use the product and you are studying, their behavior. And then you have outside commenters who have partial information. And so their view of it, and they have other things going on in their lives, whether it's journalists or analysts or competitors or just, the people on social media. And so they're just commenting with incomplete information. And you, of course, are just watching month over month the product get better, customers visiting stores and closing transactions. So yeah, it is very strange to be a public company, I think, for a lot of folks, especially when you have too much attention, right? I mean, arguably, the press wanted to know who was going to win inside of inside of the pandemic. This became an obsession with CNBC and everybody else. Who's going to win? Who's going to win? And they basically picked two categories, telemedicine and e-commerce. But you did a really great blog post where you show this incredible bump and then, reversion to the mean. Maybe you could talk a little bit about the bump you saw during the pandemic and how that smoothed out and just became more of a straight line eventually.
Yeah, so this is sort of e-commerce adoption rate. E-commerce is a percentage of overall retail and how it evolved. I mean, this is very easy to understand. I'm sure, like the moment no one could move around anymore, people could not reach retail stores. Also, people could not spend their money on experiences or like go to bars and so on. So what happened at the beginning of a pandemic is like people very much switched spending to like partly saving, in fact, and the other part to goods. And the goods were predominantly acquired through e-commerce, and that created a massive leap forward in terms of GMV in for our merchants and business for a platform. There was actually points in time where like during this period where the cloud providers almost ran out of servers. It was actually I don't know if that's
CPU,
yeah,
storage.
So you I mean, I'm sure you're familiar, and your listeners are familiar with the concept of a bank run that can happen. So there was basically a bank run going on CPU instances, and just because everyone was growing, and companies have projections about utilization rates, and they're building ahead of those, but there's not a lot of in it for you to build massively ahead. That's just carrying more costs on the books, right? So so suddenly everyone realized we are going through these leaps forwards in utilization, and probably haven't done all the optimizations we wanted to get done right at this moment. And then people are sequestering resources that are not utilized. It's kind of interesting. So just lots of interesting stories from this time. We really saw this. Everything just became very, very, very busy quickly. And so I was wrong about this. I actually expected this to be a very, very long-term stepping stone event for e-commerce adoption, because my theory was that people are just there's just a lot of people who have never experienced it. It's just not in the habits. When people say, "Hey, I need this thing," it's just, for you and me, the first thing we think of is just probably get out our phone and buy it or order it or something. And I sometimes actually have to remind myself I could go to stores because I've sort of fallen out of a habit, especially before COVID. And I imagine this would be more of an effect. I think that is, and then as the lockdown orders came down, it actually went basically to where e-commerce penetration that would have been if things would have just
it was on a
normally
slope.
gone.
And 10% of people were buying online. It shoots up to 16%. It goes up 60% in 6 months, maybe.
Yes, yeah, massive.
Out of necessity. And then it just comes slowly back down. And if it had gone on the regular pace, it maybe would have been at 14 or something. So, net, it's probably a 20% speed up or something, acceleration.
Yeah.
Do your remote employees feel disconnected? I bet they do. Well, Spokn is the workplace podcasting platform loved by startups like Robinhood, Udemy, and 15Five. And Spokn just launched a new way for companies to build connection and community remotely. It's called Spokn Stories. You might know stories from Instagram where only you can add to them, but Spokn Stories are different. Spokn Stories can belong to a company or a team. In fact, your entire team or smaller team units can add to that specific story. And you can create stories about anything. Maybe you want to celebrate wins. Maybe you want to do some shout outs, give people credit. Maybe talk about your travel or birthdays, anything, product updates. And you don't have to wait for an offsite or hold awkward Zoom happy hours to connect with your team. Nope. Spokn Stories is designed for remote teams. It's asynchronous and it's fast, yet still human. Leaders, this is a really easy way to get to know your employees and recognize them. They want you to try it so you can get 3 months free at getspokn.com/twist. Remember, that's Spokn with no E. Getspokn.com/twist. Getspokn.com/twist. Getspokn.com/twist for 3 months free. Take out the E for excellent. Which is fascinating. When I go to a store now, I don't know if you have this experience, but for me, going to the movies or the store, it's like going to a museum or like going to an amusement park where I'm like, whoa, this is special. I'm in a place where there's things on a shelf and I sort through them and there's a person who helps me navigate through all this stuff. The whole concept is so foreign to me. And of course, the stock went up crazy. That's a distraction inside the company. I would take it.
Yeah.
So how do you manage that? Because it's kind of hard to keep people, this is what I've heard from a lot of CEOs who go through this. you as the founder very easily could just be like, whatever, my net worth's X or Y or Z. It doesn't really affect me. I'm past that escape velocity. But for somebody who maybe is, a rank and file person, this can get very distracting. Do I have $1 million in RSUs or 5 or 2 or 500? Like, this is the majority of their wealth is in there, and it could change everything. So how is that to deal with and people, sitting there refreshing the stock price instead of pushing code sometimes?
Yeah, I mean, we've always had a somewhat inspired policy internally, but I mean, it's hard to do this in a digital world now. But if anyone was seen to look at the stock price, or it was on a monitor or something like this, and doing a presentation, like you had to buy like donuts, basically. Tim Hortons is a Canadian thing.
I know Tim Hortons. For everyone.
Yeah.
Oh, those maple donuts are delicious.
So whenever you saw Timbits in the kitchenette, you knew someone got caught. That's kind of
that's hilarious.
I think that helped. I don't know if it helped, but that was there as a little bit of a touchstone along those lines. So people knew to not spend all the time at least talking about it. The other thing is I made a point of this many times with great frequency as in the run-up is I reminded everyone, we did not get 50% smarter in the last 2 months.
No.
So, just because the stock went up 50%, it's just, this is just to remember, at some point the stock will go down 50%, and we also didn't get 50% worse or dumber or whatever we want. It's not, this is not us. We work on the real market value of this business, which is unknowable. And what the stock market is trying to do is create consensus plus a million other things that, for what, the approximate value given current long-term thinking, how the time horizon of a market shifts itself. And there is times where the market loves potential, of which we have a ton. And so there's times where the market just doesn't, it just values performance, of which we have a ton too. But our market price was very reflective of both things multiplying together. And when all the potential goes out, that just can look like this. So I don't know how much it helped, but it was all I got at the moment. Because, I mean, the market beta drove Shopify to insane levels. And then that came out again. So the roller coaster was pretty severe. I don't recommend that to most folks. And yes, people... but from a perspective, you're asking specifically from an employee perspective, which is much more complex. It's easier to reason about these things in an abstract and in the sort of society level. But this is a very much a individual kind of experience, because everyone, this is the weirdest part of the experience is that everyone around you joined at different times, and so there's no common ground. There's no shared experience. And of course, the people who who have a worst experience, axiomatically have to will have to spend most time either talking about it or just trying to figure out what this means for them. So you end up in this situation where you're going to be acutely aware of some really unfortunate, unfair occurrences of timing. I think I even put that into a post. It's the way we designed our compensation packages with stock options and RSUs is just sudden, the market beta matters a lot, right? It's and confidence of investor classes. It's if Russia invades Ukraine the day before you join, your lifetime earnings might be very different than the day if you would have joined a couple of days earlier, or if a stock grant would have been a couple of days earlier. And that just seems like a weird dependency for figuring out how to compensate people, right? So anyway,
well, you made a tool for this. I reached out to you the second I saw this, because I said, well, why doesn't this exist? But how come this hasn't existed before? So we'll pull it up on the screen here for the audience who's watching in video. And, there's obviously two pieces to comp. You can have some stock, you can have your salary. And you said, well, I think what you said was, let's give people the ability to scenario plan, because this is new. Most people who come work at a company have never had stock options. I don't know of 100 people coming to work at Shopify in 2022. I don't know, maybe half of them have had this experience, maybe half hadn't.
That sounds about right.
Yeah. So, and you're in Canada too. So in Canada, it's not like there's many Shopifys there. I mean, you had Rim, but there's like a handful. So maybe explain what you built and how it's been received by the employee base. And we have it on the screen now, so you can actually sportscast it if you like and describe what we're seeing here.
Yeah, I think what I talked about earlier is a good setup. It's sort of framing, because my background. Last time we nerded out on like our tech backgrounds, right? Like I'm very much a techie out of I don't know, hacking central casting, right? Like it's just like I love computers, I love software. I thought about that I'll always be a programmer, but eventually what I realized though was I really just like building systems, and computers and programming are very, very good. Like they're fantastic for people who like building systems, because you write the code, you design a system, and then it keeps doing it forever. Sort of at some point I had to make these decisions about like, what do I want to do, and do I want to do the CEO thing for longer, public companies, all these kind of things, and sort of the clarifying idea there was, actually most of the most consequential systems in the world are actually those human systems, like the companies themselves, and incentive systems, and just like how do you it seems like every problem worth solving in the world is a problem for which you need a lot of people working from very diverse backgrounds, working together with aligned incentives, and just like basically all I'm talking about is the modern company. So I find sometimes when something that we all do causes a very bad, like it's sort of an observably bad
variable
outcome. It's variable is probably best. Like bad.
Yeah.
It's bad right now. Bad. It can actually be very good. Yeah. Variable is the better word.
Flip a coin. It's like a decision making in a poker hand.
Yeah.
Could go really well. It could go really bad.
Right. And I think it just seemed like the decisions were on the wrong side. Like I think the company. Like I'm a big fan of treating the company as like a professional sports team. Everyone's adults. Everyone, like, people have agency, right? Like, and about their decisions. And so we were thinking about like, well, like we actually ran some polls, like where we just picked, like we found like the exact salary that the most of the people in the company shared for various reasons between different groups, and just like surveyed how much they think they earn, and we got like almost no agreement back. Like everyone,
they didn't even understand what their compensation was.
Yes,
even though it's in a document somewhere and it comes into their bank account, but it's not easily discernible to them. Like, I've seen this happen before. I've had to explain to people, do you know what you got paid last year? Here's your salary. Here's your bonus. Here's your carry in a venture firm. Here's what your future earnings will be. And they're like, yeah, I don't make that much. They literally don't know how much they make. And it's usually they underestimate, I find. Yeah.
I've seen I've seen this same dynamic, and it's really not like I'm not blaming the people at all. It's just extremely complex. We have leaked the implementation detail of highly complex financial instruments to like the institution of employment for tax optimization purposes mostly, right? Like this is why like a lot of equity happens, which it's all fine and good, but like these complex instruments usually come with owner's manuals, and like there's actually rules governing how much we can say about the potentials of these things, because we can't make statements about
forward-looking statements. No bueno, yeah.
So in the end, it's like this seems really unideal. We use tools like everyone else, like Workday. I don't know how much this is our usage of Workday, but when I looked at what you actually see, especially when the stock price is like underwater compared to when you joined, in your Workday instance about your stock, and just like every cardinal sin of UX was kind of like the entire line of your equity just disappears when the strike price went to zero. So I had people in like not in my office, but like in Zoom calls who were extremely upset because they actually thought it was once it zeroes out, it never comes back. It just was
they lost it. They don't have the option. It was removed
from the UX. So anyway, like I'm probably oversharing here, but like we're like, okay, So two things we're going to do. First, we're going to take over UX. Like we're a product company. We are good at this. Like all Shopify does is takes the insane complexity of a world of commerce and makes it usable by hopefully everyone. So this is the same problem. Let's go build the UX. Now, what do we want from this? Can once we own the UX, can we actually move agency over? And so this is sort of went into this concept of, can we just let people choose? Like, because, sometimes executives coming in said like, hey, I would actually like, yes, you're doing 50-50, but can I have like slightly more? Like, if this is available to executives, it should be available to everyone.
Exactly.
I just think,
if you're a top employee, you're sophisticated when it comes to your equity, your RSUs, restricted stock units, for people who don't know that, you're going to be like, hey, listen, you were going to pay me $200,000. You were going to give me 40,000 in options. I already made money at my last company. I'll take 100, but can I get a little more equity?
Exactly.
And so, it's a negotiation that people are willing to have with the top 5% of the organization, but it's so hard to do that with everybody. But you found a way to make it easier, which is, this is like a mortgage calculator. Sometimes you go calculate your mortgage, you got your score, you got your down payment. And so people can actually understand and move sliders back and forth.
I probably need to speed up on this. Like the biggest changes we made here is like we actually just moved everything to like, here's your annual income. Like it's calculated based on the grant value. Like we just like figured out a heuristic by which we can convert the old system and new system, and then everyone got an offer to here is what the new system, what your wallet size is. And for everyone who opted in, which was basically everyone, now it's like something where every quarter you make a decision and you get the stock options that you chose and you get them at that value. So like so this is like this is actually where the real differences are in the system. So we moved completely away from 3-year grant. You're just getting whatever the agreed value is the one you're getting. There's some discounting, I think, as you have on the screen right now, but like it is for people to choose RSUs or stock options depending on what they want. But
so if I take more stock, I get a little extra because I have more skin in the game. I take it,
and it's more risk. You're like, it should be risk adjusted to some degree, right? Like and frankly, we in some cases, like just for cash flow purposes, we actually want people to take take options because they are playing that purpose on our side as well. So we have the ability to offer incentives for people to go into options, which we are not doing much with. But in the future, you can imagine that they might, like if everyone's in cash, maybe there's more discounts for on the options to get people into that or whatever. I think it's just a lot that becomes a lot easier, and there is a common ground truth of what everyone is making that doesn't that where you don't forget that you're also getting equity, where you don't forget that you like RSUs made like this is pre-tax and post-tax, and like it just everything becomes very comparable and easy.
In this market, we're all sick of hearing so much bad news. My God, layoffs, inflation, funding drying up. But early stage investing is slowly starting to heat up again. Trust me, I know. I'm doing all these meetings. So all is not lost, folks. It's not all bad news. And I want to tell you about one of my favorite startups, and this one's out of New York City. It's called Masterworks. Masterworks is an alternative asset investment platform, and they're focused on blue chip art. Now, alternative asset allocation is projected to grow, and it's projected to grow at an average of 17.5% within the next 2 years, according to market intelligence firm Cerulli Associates. Masterworks grew to $500 million under management in just 5 years. Wow. And so far, they've averaged 29% net returns for their investors. And I've made a couple of investments myself on the platform. I have a Basquiat. I'm so proud that I own a little bit of that. And when I see the picture, I just think, oh, that's awesome. I own some art. Super innovative what Masterworks has done. And Masterworks, if you didn't know, is one of the only startups in the world to become a unicorn after its first fundraise. They've done so well. There's a huge waitlist to get on the platform, but you can skip the line JCal style at masterworks.io/twist. That's masterworks.io/twist so you can skip the line. See important regulatory aid disclosures at masterworks.io/CD. What's great about it too, I think, you had this great post where you're like, hey, listen, we're not a family. We're a sports team. We're here to win. We're here to get better at our jobs every day. Everybody's got a role on the team. Everybody should be thinking about their contribution. And listen, if you don't make a contribution, like you can't be on the team. That's kind of how teams work. Whereas in a family, if you're a screw up, you're still part of the family. Like we've all got somebody in the family who's a complete screw up. But being a product first company like this, and then letting people have agency is so brilliant, because what I find is sometimes people will come to you as the leader of a company, and I've been through this to a much smaller scale, but they're looking at you like, well, why are you doing this to me? Or like, this is being put on me. I don't have the ability. I'm just a victim here. And it's like, you're not a victim. You chose to work at this company. And now we're making it even easier for you to choose long-term versus short-term. Hey, maybe you need cash now. You got over your skis with your mortgage, or you got to take care of a parent. You don't want to go long. You just need cash. Great. But you can set it quarterly. That's a bold decision. My God, the finance organization must have fought you on quarterly.
Yeah,
they must have been like, no, Toby, yearly, every 2 years. What did they say to you when you came up with this idea?
Well, I asked for bi-weekly, like twice a month. I just wanted to do it with a paycheck, to which they pointed out rightfully, but
that's hilarious.
A lot of our European employees are getting monthly. So anyway,
you asked to do it twice a month. The finance team must have spit their coffee out.
I just wanted to do it. I mean, you always ask for the ideal
good
thing,
negotiation
and when you figure out where you land. But I just basically wanted to make it like super independent of like you choose how you want it, and like it comes to you in terms of cash, RSUs or stock, depending on what you choose. Again, stock's a little bit down. You get actually more stock because again the money is stock goes up. Whatever you've took as stock you have in the bank is worth more. Like it's kind of, it works. Like think about the counterfactual to if you would have been on the system all along, this would have been like the internal, like a lot of internal complexity would have not existed with the system, which is interesting because I've been trying frankly to get to the system for many years. It's not like it wasn't the first time we talked about like this, and I have a particular sort of propensity for wanting to rethink things, especially if everyone does the same thing. Then I get really suspicious of it. There's usually a way to do it better. I don't know if this is better. Like that, I will report back. There are clear downsides that people can level at it. Like for instance, it's clearly not as retentive as like a 3-year option grant, right? Like,
right. So what you're saying is, yeah, if you want to lock people up, give them the golden handcuffs, like making them negotiate every couple of years, you could lord it over them a bit more. So if you were in lord it over mode as a management team, you'd be like, well, we can kind of have our thumb over these folks. But I suspect if you want the best folks, giving them agency creates a less parental-child relationship and more of a peer relationship.
That's exactly what I'm going for. You're spot on. I did. You liked my note on leadership. I wrote one on leaving well, which is like there's basically 3 things you can do in a company. You can leave too early, which sucks for you. You can leave too late, which actually sucks for you and for the company. And you can leave right on time, which works for everyone. and I think the sort of retentive component of stock options, like the golden handcuffs, very, very often just simply cause the bad sides of these things. It's like people who actually really want to be somewhere else stay around because they have to. And honestly, that just actually doesn't work for the company or you. You become more bitter over it. I think everyone should be working where they can be a superstar. So it's, I'm not
see it
too
happening now. I don't know if you've been following it. I don't want you to have to comment on other peers to your company, but I will. You look at Google and Facebook now. Sundar is like, people need to recommit, and Facebook is like, you need to reapply to another part of the organization, and they won't even do layoffs, right? They won't take the medicine to say we're cutting 10%. They're like, we're going to reorganize, make all these units smaller. You have to reapply to go to another place, and a lot of this has to do with stock comp. A lot of it has to do with kind of like forcing people to reapply for their jobs, and it's dysfunctional. And to your point, if you're a player, if this was the NBA, we want you to get as many minutes in the game as you deserve. And hey, if our team has, we don't have enough minutes to go around, maybe you would be better off playing for a team with the worst record and playing more minutes. Maybe that's better for you. And that's really what you want as a boss. Nobody wants to deal with this dysfunction. And the dysfunction at Google has really built up. Google's initial idea, I remember talking to, I'll just say, senior people at Google, leave it at that, in the early days. And they were like, we have a money printing machine. We're hiring every talented person we can find. And if they're super smart and talented, we'll figure out what job they do later. And then somebody told me and if they're working here, they can't build a competitor. It was literally Google took the money printing machine and was like, it would be like somebody like the Yankees or like the Knicks being like, we have so much money at the Lakers, we're just going to pay the top 10, these 10 players to be on our bench as backups, even though we know we can't put them in the game, so they're not on other teams that could win the championship. It was a crazy move, but nobody wants to live with that dysfunction.
Yeah, I mean, it's game theoretically perfect to do it, right? It's a great strategy. I think Google actually literally had a bench, right? They've even called it that for a while. I don't know. I think there's cycles and there's fashions, and I think I'm always suspicious about how these stories end up being reported. I sort of see how people end up obviously writing about Shopify, and it's amazing the ability by people to sort of turn something into something that sounds like this sort of brash, random decision that came on a whim. But actually, I happen to know we've been, discussing, from philosophy, sociology and first principles for 3 years, and we built something completely different, but sort of above the iceberg component of it is being reasoned about. And I think actually all this is probably good because I think most companies are just I think they're starting to see their role again as companies, right? And I think people have tried to move companies into the realm of, I don't know, sort of mock academia a little bit, and that has downsides. And I might be mean, but I think there's some companies which went so far to move, see what value there is in daycare to extract, and I guess run the counterfactual to the rest of the industry to make workplace a little bit more like that. I think that's outrageous, and I'm glad I never had to participate in that kind of experiments on the employee side. So I think humans are awesome, and it's so much better than everyone seems to think. It's hard to create environments which are creative, and but if you put your mind to it and don't just copy everything that worked for others, and try to build something that's uniquely worth it for kinds of type of problems that you are solving and that augments your company culture, you end up with something that just creativity comes from everywhere, and where people hopefully fall in love with the products you're creating, and where kind of everyone's holding each other accountable, or actually reaching over, someone falling behind and helping them and saying hey, here's the thing you're missing, and let's work on your growth so you can be part of this team. And that's exactly what everyone wants, isn't it? So we're hiring the people who are super signed up for this kind of thing. We pay extremely well for but we paid in an almost paternalistic way where we make all the decisions about what's good for you. And so this was our opportunity to just switch over to something that's cohesive with the way we want to run the business.
Well, you're also going to self-select for people who want agency. And the people who want agency, I think, are going to correlate with people who make good decisions on their own. And when you're running a business, speed matters. You got serious competition. You want people to make decisions, and you don't want people sitting around. A lot of companies have had big challenges because nobody wants to make a decision. And that's kind of why startups exist. How many times have you been slowed down by time-consuming tasks like data entry and rescheduling all these meetings? Imagine how productive you could be if you dropped all that back office stuff and you started focusing on things like growth and product. Well, Helpware is people as a service, and it's going to make you bionic. And before I even finish this ad read, I just want you to go to helpware.com/twist and sign up and get $1,000 off right now. Basically, Helpware helps outsource tasks that are slowing your team down, the mundane stuff, data entry, to more complex tasks like customer support and even AI operations. and wait until you hear about their clients. DoorDash, Google, Microsoft, Amazon, and more. People are scaling. They got big data sets, AI operations. You get the idea. All of these mundane tasks can be done by Helpware. Imagine all of your top performers. And now imagine them wasting zero time on back office tasks and having them all focused on growing and building your business. That's what's possible with Helpware. So go to helpware.com/twist to get $1,000 off your first invoice. That's right, HELPWARE.com/twist for $1,000 off. And hey, welcome to the Twist family, Helpware. Let's talk a little bit about layoffs. You had to lay off a bunch of people. That's a first for you. How did you come to the decision? And just how was it for you as the founder to have to go through that? I think that was the first time you had to do it at that kind of scale. Yeah, it was
definitely the first time I do it. It was crushing is the only word.
Yeah,
it's
crushing,
I see. I believe in there's well-defined different tasks. I build a company that's really, really, really worth working for, and I feel like every job offer is our commitment that this is the right place for you to join, that your career is going to go better when you join here, and our mission is going to move further when you join here. This is actually the concept of employment is the agreement that this is the optimal thing to do for the next
alignment. Right, there's alignment between these two things. Yeah.
So it's crushing. Partly, for multiple reasons, it's you get the individual experiences, which and you hear about it, of course, and you want to do people right, and you have to tell people that you're going to do something which is going to be a very consequential thing in their own careers, and that they have no agency over. That is actually where we have to make a decision for them, and sometimes for no fault of their own. And it's crushing because I made these I see that I have made these commitments, and in some cases I probably was wrong. Some people should have taken an offer of a company that didn't have to go through this. Now I couldn't have known this back then, but still it's falling short of my own standards. So some of the hardest days. The reason why we had to do it, though, we could have also chosen not to do it. It would have been possible to potentially not do it. I think that would have been easier on everyone, but actually worse on the people that might have been affected. This is a hard thing to argue for, and people ought to take the other side for me to steelman this. But the reason why I say this is we had to hire ahead a lot for the e-commerce explosion that we talked about earlier.
Just like the servers, right? The servers should have been had next year or maybe even 2 years capacity. So you're hiring what for a year or 2 years from now in terms of your thinking?
Yeah, we more than we more than doubled. So it's up 6,000 people in 2 years or something or more even. We expanded a lot because there's we did not want to compromise product. We see, so for instance, customer support as product. It's again, we meet people very early in the entrepreneurial journey. They are often, they are courageous, but their commitment wavers. They might actually call us to ask what's the next task. They are not sophisticated yet. They are on a learning journey, but there's a lot of new things to learn after they start. Very often people start with Shopify store before they incorporate or do anything else. So that's when someone talks to us, we see this as actually our product represented instead of through web browsers for people, and so that required a lot of getting ahead. And because we didn't want to compromise the quality that they set for ourselves on those things. So, there's also some reasons where we had to build capacity ahead of demand, because it just takes a while to hire and onboard. And when we didn't need, once we knew, once we had the data, it's we can now engage in saying, okay, well, let's change the job you're doing. Let's find something else. Or allow people in certain groups, maybe start a bench, right? That's not fair to everyone else, right?
No.
So in a company dynamics perspective, it would compromise the company we are and the way we are solving problems. And so we
clearly
ended
the
up
right
deciding.
decision. Yeah, I mean, to steelman it for you, like everybody comes into this concept, like we buy in that this is a dynamic environment, and the reward for working in a dynamic, competitive, capitalistic system is that you can win, you can lose, you can make mistakes. And so everybody kind of buys into that. And it's double opt-in. People can leave at any time and the company can change its plans. And that's why the West and capitalism in the West has won versus authoritarian societies that can make unilateral decisions to pick winners. Like literally in a competition where the government can pick the winner, say China or any other country, they can't beat competition. Rabid, dogged, gritty competition will always win. Will always win. And we were sitting here, I don't know, last year, 2 years ago, I was in this debate with my besties on All In sometimes. Oh my God, like China's going to roll us. And I was like, I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure that, if they don't let entrepreneurs battle it out in the arena, that's why we're battle tested here. And you have this giant competitor in Amazon. You got to wake up every day and these two gladiators go at each other. This is the next jump off point I wanted to go to you with you. They have a tenuous relationship, an unpure relationship with their partners. You have a pure relationship. You support people who want to sell stuff on the internet. They only work with you to the extent you help them. Amazon studies the people on their platform. And let's just be honest, call it what it is. Amazon Basics, 50 other white label brands, they copy them. They pull the rug out from under them. And, it's becoming a bit of an antitrust issue for Amazon. So obviously you don't have to comment on their antitrust issues. But I'm curious, when people call that customer support line you talked about, and customer support as a feature, as an actual product is brilliant. Shout out to Tony Shea, rest in peace, our friend from Zappos, who really, I think set a standard here for everybody to hit.
I lost a good one there.
Oh, it's so brutal. I was just thinking about him a lot when I was at Burning Man. You think about his contribution there, and you think about what your advice is to those people who are selling when they come in to your ecosystem. What does a person say on the phone? Like, hey, should we put our stuff on Amazon or should we go direct? How do you think about that? If you were giving advice, let's say one of your siblings or a cousin started a store, what would you advise them privately and say, like, here's how to think about getting something out of being listed on Amazon, or baby, here's the things you should be concerned about? I mean,
so this might actually surprise you. I wouldn't reflexively say no. It depends a lot on what you're selling. If you're selling any kind of necessity, you definitely want to be on Amazon because that's where people look for them. But it can be a right strategy as long as you go in eyes wide open. Amazon is in no way doing something here with the store brands that hasn't been done in retail forever. This is exactly what Kirkland is. This is there's Trader Joe, I think, is the sort of North American version of Aldi, right? It's just all store brands. The retail industry is a beautiful manifestation of capitalism in its very pure form, warts and all, right? The question is always what do you need to differentiate yourself? If you have a unique product, and go on Amazon, you soon will not have a unique product. Same with if you go on AliExpress, you will also very quickly not have a unique product anymore. But if a particular product is we find that very rarely it's actually the product straight up. Again, in our capitalist, in our Adam Smith society, we tend to think about economics a little bit too much about utilitarian value. Goods and so are much more about. There's a lot more emotion in there. There's a lot more belonging in there. There's so
the story.
There's a story that there's how often have you had this situation where I don't know you encountered someone who uses a similar brand, maybe car type or something you're excited about, and you feel an instant connection because there is one. This exists. This is not made up, right? This is how we work. So. So if your core concept of your business is that you stand for something as a business, and that you have that there's a community of people, then you should probably be everywhere, because you should look for people who are opting into your idea and your worldview even everywhere, and that can involve Amazon. Like, people making different choices about this, So we have a lot of Shopify stores, people who were on Amazon and then they publicly got copied and left there. And I think, I don't know about the current status with Allbirds, but they have a complex history, for instance, and they are one of our favorite stores because they started on Shopify and then went public as one of our customers, which is just such a cool
That's extraordinary. Wow, I didn't realize that they were built on your stack. Wow.
Yeah. It's super and great, like amazing entrepreneurs, and so it's just so. I guess what I'm saying is I don't have a straight up answer, because it really depends on like on you. Amazon is just a sales channel at the end of the day. It's a very good one. It's like at times it might be the best in the world, and for some categories at least. And people should. Like, entrepreneurship is tough enough. Don't say no to a channel for some idealistic reasons, or do it if that's cohesive with your brand. But like, I maybe Amazon can play a role. And
I love the idea of just putting a sliver of your product offering there to kind of acquire customers, get the brand out there, so people don't get nothing when they go on the site, but then have these more unique things. And I think there are some sharp elbowed business practices that I think we do need to think about with them. I think they should just get out of the basics business, like get out of the house brand business. And then just this idea of like maybe leaning on people about their pricing. Like, it should be up to the merchant to decide what the price is in whatever store they want. If they want to charge one price on their store and one price at Target in person and one price at, Amazon, that should be, up to the merchant themselves. Talk about like the pace of delivery. There was this idea that like everybody wanted everything immediately. And then I've seen signs that maybe for some categories, if you need deodorant or a quart of milk, of course, get it to me as quick as possible. But it does seem like maybe we went too far in fulfillment, and people are now choosing, I could get this a little bit slower if it was cheaper, or can I get less boxes? Maybe we could talk about what you're seeing there in terms of fulfillment. What do consumers want, and what's the best practice?
Yeah, I mean, I'm knee deep in this, right? Like, because we're building warehouses and all these kind of things. So like, it's that is probably my favorite. Like, I just find the delivery world and the fulfillment world to be absolutely fascinating. It just has all the kind of components of like 90s piece like computers. Like it's like you build your own computer from like components and get
your motherboard, get your power supply, buy a case, put some memory in.
Well, and then you go to a Radio Shack and get a faster quartz and solder it in, because that's the best way. It's just like people are doing these super unscalable, non-productized things
It's like building a muscle car. You're like, change the carburetor. I need to put different rims on this.
Yet we are expecting every retailer to go through this. It's clearly not meant to be for them. And so this is actually something Shopify is trying to fix, of course. But like, sooner is better. But like, there is it is exactly this sort of necessities. Sooner is everything. So it's almost like if you can't get things this fast, don't play. It's like there's no demand past like 2 days, 3 days speed. If you are in another category, like anything that's like something you want rather than something you need, like, sneakers, Allbirds or whatever. Sooner is better. It's a better experience. It's a digital equivalent, I guess, of when you go in a physical store and the music is perfect, lighting is great, the stores don't squeak, the people, the help is the people, the storekeepers are friendly, and so it's part of experience. It will get you the thing you really want, which is lifetime customer value. It'll get repeat customers, because a lot of the first sales actually happen at margin, especially with the sort of occurrences of advertising changes now, and it's really afterwards that you pick up margin. So it's a big part of that, but it's not nearly like it's a curve. Then it drops off at like probably 7 days, at which point like never again. It depends on again what it is. It's usually a little bit earlier. But we separate this out in a couple of things. And what we are working on super hard at Shopify is that in the future, even for the smaller retailers, what you will see on a product page is a shop guarantee, which says this thing will either be with you like tomorrow, 2 days from now, or before the weekend. Those are actually the three things of significance. The last one is overlooked because a lot of the things that people want, they want for the next weekend. That's a super common thing.
Ah, that's fascinating.
It's like your home projects, like your you know you're going to play.
You have time to unbox. Like, let's face it.
Time to unbox.
Just unboxing all this stuff coming to our houses is a little bit time consuming.
It is. So these are the free guarantees that we think are of a lot of value. We are going to have thousands and thousands and billions of dollars. We allocate to thousands of people and billions of dollars we are going to allocate towards making it so that from a buyer perspective, they can get things with such guarantees from as many small businesses as possible, because that's fundamentally hard to do, but like it's very valuable, and no one's built this. What Amazon's built is a very different thing, which is unique to them. They have warehouses of 20 million SKUs, whatever, like, and all of them can randomly be boxed together. That's not the way small, medium businesses work. They have smaller catalogs and so on. The details don't matter. We'll get it done. And I think that, like at this point, we found that there's an increasing amount of small businesses that actually have started rightfully renaming free delivery to sustainable, slower delivery options is what I meant to say, to more sustainable, because like the faster it goes, the most likely it goes on a plane, which is not carbon neutral at all. So, I think people will pick different places on this. Some people will always want the fastest.
In terms of the abundance we have in society, I was just reading an FT article before I got on the show, and they were just talking about how there's now all these examples of GDP going up while emissions go down. And you're like, well, of course you can have both. It's called technology. It's called thoughtfulness. And I'm finding as a consumer, and maybe it's because I have kids and I'm getting older, but I'm just thinking about my footprint. I'm thinking about waste. I'm making, my iced coffee at home instead of buying a ton of blue bottle boxes. I got rid of the salsa, cases of salsa coming, La Croix train coming every 2 weeks with cases, and just drinking iced tea instead. And I do think people really care about that footprint. Let's talk about payments. You have your own payment channels now, right? You have Shopify payments. I think you call it payments.
Yeah. And then we have Shop Pay, which a lot of people have some familiarity with, right? Like, because that's when you buy something from someone and you get like a code, and then it all just zooms through.
I love that. Oh, that's so smooth when you just go to a website and it's got Shop Pay. So you're kind of like going against Stripe there, or PayPal. You have that built into the system. Why would people use the Shopify payments versus Stripe? It's basically a wash in terms of cost, but it's just more simple and elegant.
Well, it's actually like a lot of the software underneath Shopify payments is Stripe. This is one of the longest standing partnerships in technology. We're actually sometimes wondering with Patrick about if there is any other like partnership that has seen both companies grow as much as Shopify did and Stripe did from the point where we started first partnering almost 10 years ago. So that's been really, really one of the great success stories there. So Stripe is our technology partner for a lot of these components. We certainly have enough big enough chunk of the world of logistics software and the world of commerce software to keep us busy. So why did people use it? Well, I mean, it's the reason people come to us now. It's like it's your conversion rate is going to be massively lower if you don't have Shop Pay. It's such a common like cart abandonment rates on every non-Shopify e-commerce software are through the roof because people get to the checkout, can't find Shop Pay, and leave.
It's death. It's death to see fill out my information again. Literally, I see this sometimes where I'm like, I'll wait till I'm at my desktop, or for some reason this website is not letting me autofill, and I'm like, how do you not get autofill right in 2022? Like, this is table stakes. But I understand they got some small store. They don't even go through the user checkout process ever. They just set up their store. They never even think about the UX because, I don't know, whatever they're selling, some bespoke product, they're not software experts. What do you think about this buy now, pay later phenomenon. Is that like here to stay and people love it, or is it faddish? How do you even think about that and in your role in it?
I mean, so it's something people buy. I mean, it's something we offer for merchants who want it, and there's some groups it's extremely popular with, partly because I mean, there's a lot, like the credit cards are engaged in. They're taking a lot of risks, which, to their credit, they're courageous companies, because, usually companies of their size are not courageous. So the way this courage manifests is like in fees that we are pushing. And, like consumers on one side are deciding, hey, maybe I should just get a debit card and just use buy now, pay later to basically get credit back. And because that actually allows the underwriting to happen to people who are willing to do it much more economical. And so that's one aspect. It's especially with younger purchasers. That's a very, very common thing. This is why you see buy now, pay later so much, or why initially it became such a big thing so quickly. And then, high AOV it's a big unlock for high AOV for high cost merchants, like the mattress, Peloton bikes, and so on, like things that cost like are big, like fairly big outlay is perfect.
Considered purchases.
Yeah.
It can take a considered purchase and maybe make it a little more, take a little bit of the friction out, right? Like, okay, if I'm paying for it monthly, I mean, I don't need to do it. And like, sometimes I get these offers and I'm like, wait a second, 0% and I can pay for it over 3 years for my iPhone. Maybe I should do that. And I'm like, I don't care. Like, but it does seem to be a really elegant solution for some merchants who, like you're saying, have those, headwinds against them. Maybe it makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. It makes, I know some of the data, like again, it's not a universal solve, but for some business, it is a absolutely massive change. And made a massive difference. Yeah. Like a massive difference for their cash flows, massive difference for like expansion of their products, the amount of people who like could purchase it. It's so again, credit is, I mean, our economies are built on top of credit, right? Like, our economics get, for better or for worse, right? Like, like sometimes people are bad with credit. I think that might, like that periodically occurs, and then we usually go in some kind of correction. But like there's a lot of brainstorming about how to do credit well, and it's like now starting to be done by companies. Like, Affirm is just extremely good at it.
Max
for
is brilliant. Yeah,
exactly. I mean, he's like he's done this kind of underwriting even at PayPal back in those days. So he's been thinking about this longer than everyone else. And, the software industry is like just the way software works gives new possibilities. And, the credit cards are all, as if they continue like this, just pushing everyone to like rethink of, where the underwriting ought to occur. And so I think it's, I mean, to your point, competition is good. And so if all the buy now, pay later will eventually do is like get the credit card products to be improved to absorb some of the experience of this, because it's just kind of it's structured more fairly. It's a lot more above ground. It's more clear how much it costs in the end.
Yeah,
then I think that's
know
good.
What they're paying. They get this like huge credit card bill, and they everything is obscurified. And if Max is really smart at architecting these things, he's going to know like, this 25% in this cohort, no problem. Let them rip. They'll pay their bills. They got a job. We got the data here. They're going to pay their bills. Hey, this group, we might want to pump the brakes or give them a different deal and just make it up front and throttle them if need be. But I am looking at it going, I hope people aren't maxed out on their credit cards.
Yeah.
And they're doing buy now, pay later. That's the only one I'm worried about. Is like those two groups of people are competing to empower people to make purchases. I just hope that they have insight into what each other are doing in some way, right? Like, I guess the merchants do, and your technology does.
They do, but that's the right thing to worry about.
When you're hiring people today, we've seen some generational shifts. Like we're Gen Xers, we just want to work and crush it, put 50, 60 hours a week in. Like we take really pride in careers. What are you seeing with these younger generations? Because you're hiring a lot, I'm sure, plenty of millennials, obviously, but you got a lot of Gen Zs probably coming in. And I'm assuming you're work from home mostly. How are you managing this younger workforce? We hear a lot of like, maybe they don't have the same work ethic, some of them, maybe they don't want to come to work. Labor participation in the United States, I don't know if you track these numbers, but we're, in 1999, we had 70%, now we have 61, 62%. Like we've got a whole swath of people missing from the workforce here in the United States. I don't know about Canada. I do find I have a lot of Canadian employees, and I find they stay longer, they work harder, more consistent, more appreciative of the job. I don't know if that's your experience as well. It definitely is mine. But how do you think about employment and hiring and just managing great people in a time when it seems like maybe some people don't want to come work? A lot of people are opting out of working.
We should acknowledge that there's probably an unbroken chain for as long as humans have been around, that one generation worries about the next one's work ethic, right? Like, so
sure.
Partly because I think work looks different in a way, but like, and us Gen Xers included, every generation will wrestle with a couple of really, 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 really bad ideas that are just kind of get very deep into the firmament, and then people like have to just sort of work out, right? Like I that might have been communism at some point, hopefully people are paying attention to the report cards there that society's gotten back for how that goes. And
it definitely doesn't work out.
No, it really doesn't. It's like there's a lot of reasons for why you should not want that.
It's so weird that people are like, hey, tell me more about socialism and communism.
Yeah.
Just type in Russia breadlines 80s. Like when we were growing up in the 80s, they were like on the news, they showed you people in line to get one type of bread. Like, anybody want that? Like one type of bread at a store and there's not much left.
I'm not even making this, like, this is not as me making a veiled statement about the next generation. Even like, I'm just sort of offering an example of like, here's like a real confusion that existed, although, I do know there's flirting with that direction of a political spectrum again. I think, by the way, I think the bread lines, it's actually funny. People are like actually having pretty fond memories of these bread lines. I know enough people from East Germany that who actually, like, that was
the simplicity of it.
So which is of course post factum rationalization after you have no skin in the game anymore. However, I think the real tragedy is always the waste of human potential, right? It's like yes. Again, zero authority to even choose how you're going to contribute to the greater good, right? Like it's that seems like we should stop aspiring to that, right? When someone, like, I don't know how you steel man that somehow improves society, right? So
just think about how everybody just didn't have the tyranny of choice, and everybody just contributed to one type of bread. We all just had wheat bread, and it was incredible. Yeah, it's some weird it's some weird throwback to simplicity maybe, or something that was elegantly simple. And it's like, no, that was not elegantly simple. That was a lack of abundance and suffering and starving and boredom, like, and a lack of freedom is what it was.
So is your assertion there like that the sort of anti-work Reddit sort of, if you make a category out of this is sort of a current thing that's the problem? It's interesting. I mean, we see some of this in companies. Like sometimes sometimes we see things directly reflected that was like trending like a while ago in anti-work as an idea, just like that comes up in a Q&A. That's
quiet quitting. Like, I'm going to phone in, I'm going to do the least amount of work. Like, your manager should be able to figure that out. And there's always been people who phoned it in. The one I think is the most fascinating is the people who have 3 jobs and they're developers and they're so good at it. They're like, here's how to manage your 3 concurrent phone calls and laptops and the desktop monitoring. Like, there was a story in the Wall Street Journal today about this like desktop monitoring software that has always existed in customer support, by the way. Or if you're a trader, or if you work at a sales desk, or you work in finance, they've always had your desktop locked down. They know your keystrokes. They have to, because there's money on the line and transactions and all this kind of stuff. But that kind of stuff is, people are now having to think like, if there's abuse in the system, I think bad managers are like, well, there's abuse in the system, therefore everybody has to suffer. And it's like, I don't buy that, but I don't run thousands of employees, I run dozens. But how do you think about the abuse in the system as portrayed in the media and subreddits? Because I don't even buy that this is like a widespread problem. I think it's like a 5% problem, if that.
It's a small, but it's a small thing when people make it out to be, but it's also like absolutely fascinating in terms of it's a problem that couldn't exist in any other decade. Like in an office, it's just like you can't do free jobs if you have to show up to the office. So like I have not encountered the like person who is so good that they can actually truly do free jobs well. I think there's lots of people who potentially would have the capacity to do this, but I don't think they could pull off the context switches. So like I don't fear that.
If they did,
as a kind of thing, if they did,
did, it's in my mind. If you have somebody on your dev team, or your sales team, or a writer, whatever it is, and they're so gifted, they can pull off 3 jobs concurrently without anybody knowing about it. That's a failure of the 3 managers at the 3 companies. They didn't identify their excellence and make them the CTO or VP of engineering. You didn't challenge that person. That's like having Steph Curry on your team and you never thought like to tell him like, you know what? You should shoot them threes. You should shoot from the logo. Like, let it rip, kid. Like, that's the failure of management to recognize excellence.
I mean, you're thinking exactly right. Like I think people have a tendency to solve problems at the wrong layer, like and spend a ton of work on investing into like somehow making it work. I think almost universally these problems, if there's a problems that people encounter, are actually problems with performance management. Clearly, there's no clear set of expectations of what you want from someone, and if your performance management isn't well good enough to say that, hey, this person is utterly underutilized and therefore could do so much more for a mission, or is like totally phoning it in because they're actually like in like 3 Zoom calls at the same time and have a camera splitter that goes into all directions. And like then it's I don't know, like this should just show up. Now it's certainly harder like to do in a digital world, but like again, like also at hiring, you like this is everyone has to like this is an exercise for every company individually, but like part of your hiring process is like, I mean, depends on what you need, but like we want hardworking, smart, ethical people, because if you only get 2 of those things, the third one will kill you every single time. So so you're in all these instances you're missing ethics because you're kind of defrauding, or defrauding is maybe too big a word, but like
people know when they're doing unethical stuff.
Yeah, it's unethical to at the very least your colleagues around you, right? Like the rest of your team, even if you don't believe that companies like are worthy of consideration for ethics as well. But like your colleagues certainly shouldn't do this too.
Yeah, no, it's completely unfair. Listen, you got to go. I think I got you for over an hour. It's so great to talk to you, and it's so great to see you do well. By the way, you know, I do private company investing. That's my thing. I invest in 50, 100 companies a year. But I was watching the stock market this summer, and I sold like a bunch of these like ETFs. I had a bunch of stuff, and I was like, I'm just going to pick the 10 companies that I think make the most beautiful product and have the great leadership. And like literally bought Shopify shares this summer. So this entire thing, I now have to do a disclaimer. I'm a shareholder. And I was just talking to Tim Ferriss actually in the like last year, talking about like how amazing like you are as an executive and thinking from first principles and building this stuff. And like, you know, you have to make bets on people and their vision. And it's just such an easy bet for me, at least, to bet on you for the next decade. I'm buying shares in companies that I think 10 years from now, I feel comfortable that like the leadership will have done a great job just listening to their customers and building products and making them like 10% better every 6 months, whatever it is, 5 or 10%, like compounding, you know, innovation, innovation is just so powerful. And you're just watching you build this company has been so great. And I'm just super stoked to be a shareholder now. So yeah, back to work for you. I can't keep you for a second hour anymore.
I'm not for you now. Yeah. This is all you allow me out of my cave. But that was a super nice thing for you to say. So it's like, I'm like, that's extremely kind. So thank you very much.
Yeah. All right, listen, brother. It's great to watch you do that. If you want to go work at a great company, I don't know if you guys have a bunch of open recs now, or probably some strategic ones. This is, I think, going to be one of the great companies of our generation, Shopify.com. Go look at the job postings. And if you want to build a store and be an entrepreneur, like, it really is an incredible career path to sell stuff online. You got how many merchants now? How many, just as we close here, how many people are?
Over 2 million.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah.
The thing I'm seeing is all of these now, I'm following all the influencers like TikTok, YouTube, etc. And they all kind of like top out in their ability to make ad revenue. And they're like, you know what I should do? I should do what Kim Kardashian does. And I'm just watching the influencer set. So I literally found an influencer, I wouldn't say which one, in Canada. And I was like, you should be an entrepreneur. And we started talking. And I was like, I'll give you $25,000 to just incorporate and see if you can build a business out of this, because you got past 1 million followers, but there's like 10 different ways. And the first thing I said was like, what about creating like Shopify store, and like the people in your orbit, you could just sell like this kind of branded product and then match the content to the product. And he was like, yeah, that's incredible. And like, just great that you exist to empower people to be entrepreneurs. It reminds me of eBay back in the day, they're just empowering people to have agency in their life. All right, brother. Back
Love
to work.
it. Thank you so much.
Cheers, brother. See you soon.
Always fun to be on.
Always
Thank
fun,
you. Thanks for having me.
Okay, what an amazing interview with Tobi. So candid, great guest, and we really thank him for coming on and giving us so much of his time. Next up, producer Rachel is back with OK Boomer. Enjoy.
OK Boomer.
I understood the assignment.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for listening to this segment of OK Boomer. Today, I'm talking to a reoccurring guest, Jules Terpak. If you don't know, Jules is a digital culture commentator, and today we're going to be talking about our lives moving more and more online. So hello, Jules.
Hey, Rachel. How are you?
I'm good. So before we start the show, where can people find you on social media? I've had a lot of people asking.
Yeah, at Jules Terpak. I'm mostly on Twitter and TikTok, I'd say.
Awesome. And I know you do most of your videos remote, but I kind of like being in person. So do you mind if we just switch this over to your office?
I guess.
Awesome. All right. We're going to do the rest of this actually in person with Jules, and I'm going to go hop on a train over to Grand Central and see her there.
See you soon.
Bye. All right. Thank you, Jules, so much for having me today in your office. This is one of the only recordings I've done IRL. I don't do that many, so this is pretty cool for me.
I'm uncomfortable.
Yeah, well, you know what? Somebody's got to do things to make you uncomfortable. And honestly, I would be way more uncomfortable if I was in the metaverse. I don't know about you, but today I want to talk about is the metaverse where we're going, because we already have apps like Be Real that everybody knows I'm a huge fan of. We're posting those Be Reals basically at the same time as your friends. You get one notification a day. It's instantaneous. If you don't know what Be Real is, Google it. You're living under a rock. We always talk about it on the show. But it got me thinking, if we already have apps like Be Real, where we're watching our friends doing what they're doing at that very moment, the exact same time we are, what's the next step? Like, how more instant can we possibly get?
Yeah, like you just said, everything's becoming more instantaneous. So the news cycle is getting so much shorter when it comes to like on Twitter and TikTok. Like if you aren't talking about something within the first 12 to 24 hours, like the wave has already passed. And we're seeing that with Be Real too, in terms of almost like replicating the in real life experience. So like everyone kind of feels this collective feeling of being somewhere all at once.
Yeah,
is what we're seeing on Be Real. And I mean, that's not new. Like Twitter, I think, has always had that more instantaneous feel to it. When a current event happens, like you run to Twitter because you can search the name of the current event, and funneling in is everything in real time. That was most recently tweeted. So that's always been there. And in terms of like Clubhouse and everything, we're just getting, inching more towards collective experiences online to, again, replicate this in real life thing. We're seeing a lot of full circle situations with Netflix starting to do weekly drops, like how cable always was in the past, because they're finding that people love that more in the way that let's like the streaming service to social media transition, and like everyone talking about something all at once and feeling embraced together almost.
We were kind of talking about that too before this recording started, how like interesting it would have been if there was like a Be Real, like all centered around Euphoria. So yeah, you can't like watch Euphoria with your friends, you're in a different city, but what happens if the like HBO people knew exactly like when the shocking times were going to happen in Euphoria, and every time that happened, you'd get a notification, you would have to take a photo of your reaction. Like seeing those like immersive experiences happening, that instantaneous can't be that far away from what we're doing right now. Do you think that there is a chance that Netflix or Hulu or HBO is going to come out with like their own social media platform anytime in the near future?
I don't know about that because I think we're all very overwhelmed with how many social media platforms we have. I said this in an article with like TechCrunch of like, we can only compartmentalize like, first of all, our identity and also like spread our minds to so many apps. Like social media apps right now, there's more than 5 that are strongly positioned. Like how many can you click through during the day? You know, I have my typical rounds of Twitter, TikTok, Instagram. And for me, I can't really go over that. Like I don't get on Facebook or Snapchat anymore because I'm like, it's just too much for my mind. So we're going to see in this situation, it's kind of this, I don't want to necessarily say monopoly or like these super app situations where like there are certain platforms that are all encompassing and take the power over every single aspect of this industry is what we're kind of seeing. We're seeing TikTok just is now about to release TikTok Now, which is separate from the TikTok app. It's going to be a copy of Be Real. So yeah, we're just seeing that. And like we had talked about earlier today, like Instagram's trying to inch that way as well. So yeah.
That is super interesting too. It's funny how we saw Instagram kind of try to copy Be Real in a report that came out, and basically there was like, like they're creating it internally. It'll probably come out as like something that comes out in your story. Everyone's that I was talking to was like, why would we want Be Real for our Instagram story? Like we already have close friends. Be Real is for, at least for me, I don't know about you, Be Real is even smaller than my close friends. And then there's another platform copying it, Snapchat, I believe. And both of them like kind of tried to like sort of copy it. And TikTok just came in, basically the same exact, no remorse, basically the same thing. And it's like, oh, dang, okay. So it is interesting seeing that like this like almost like timed experience that will become a new normal in social platforms moving forward. And Be Real as the app as we know it right now could cease to exist because we do want to consolidate the apps that we use just to become more more user friendly. The one thing that I do balance between though with apps is actually where I get my news. I love like the Axios app a ton. Like that's one of the apps I freaking love. I use this one platform. It's called Feedly, mostly on my laptop, where I like sort through a bunch of like different news articles that come from newsletters. I don't use the Wall Street Journal app. I think like Axios, I guess, and Reddit would be where I get my news the most. But I'm always down to try a new news app. So that's the only category of app that I want, that I'd like be interested in seeing like a new one pop up. And recently you showed me a new one. You said it was called Volve.
Volve or Volve? I'm not
Volve,
sure.
yeah.
VOLV, yeah.
And it's basically, their tagline was TikTok for news, right? Yeah. And all the news that we see is just like, it fits within one screen. I think it's like half your screen. So it's really, really short.
It has a visual, so it's like aesthetically pleasing, but it also has like, it's like 3 to 5 sentences about something. They're from vetted sources, whether it's like legacy media or just like more like established independent media on the come up that they curate from. But I've been utilizing it here and there over the past few weeks since I was introduced to it. And that it does have that TikTok feel. Like you go on, you see like the quick bits of things throughout the day. You can pick your specific things that you're interested in. I did like, of course, like tech and like social media, all this different stuff. And it's just a nice like quick bit of information that doesn't have like all the personal mixed in, as like on Twitter, I get a lot of my news, but like, of course, within those scrolls, there's a lot of like just people like shit posting or whatever. Yeah. So it doesn't have that. Yeah.
Do you think like there's going to be any other industries to come out and like TikTokify themselves? Like how other platforms have been like Be-Reeling themselves? How we've seen obviously like, news try to now TikTokify themselves with this Volve app. But is there like anywhere else that you see could probably like pick up on this?
I just feel like I can't think of a specific other one right now, but it's just the way things are moving in terms of, first of all, people's lack of focus, but it's not even just like lack of focus. It's all a product of the information overload that we're all experiencing. So people can only if they're giving more than 30 minutes of their day to something, that's a huge chunk of time, and people realize that. So there's all this consolidation in terms of length of media that's happening, so that people feel like they even give it interest in the first place, because if they see longer than 10 minutes on a video, if they see anything, they're like, I don't have the time for this. There's ton of stuff on the internet that I could be scrolling through that's shorter and might be more concise to give me my information. So it's kind of like all industries have to adapt to that type of messaging.
I agree. I want like a podcast version. Actually, I don't know if I want this, because I think I am definitely like a outcome of somebody that grew up, even though like when I was little, I didn't have like a device or anything like that. I don't think I really got into tech really heavily, probably until middle school. Yeah. That's probably like we're the same age. That's probably when like we first were allowed to get on that kind of stuff. Now you see kids a lot younger, but we basically grew up with technology and like our like formative years, I guess. So I'm definitely a product of like the attention economy at the biggest sense possible. And I was in Trader Joe's the other day. You have to go downstairs in Trader Joe's to the one I go to. No internet, right? So that's like my audiobook time. And I was like, you know what would be really cool if there's a TikTok hear me out, TikTok for podcasts. So they're like 30-second snippets, and it just bundles through like a bunch of 30-second snippets that I could like download, right? So it'd be like an hour of 30-second snippets or something. And if I didn't like a snippet, if I didn't like the snippet, just like tap the side of my AirPods or whatever. I use wired headphones, but if I used AirPods, this would be cool, like use case, like tap the side of my AirPods, have it go to the next like 30-second snippet. And I'm like, whoa, this is crazy. Like my attention span is going so small. I saw a tweet the other day and I retweeted it because it was like, we need shorter podcasts. And I was like, love the 30-minute and under podcasts. Like that's how long my grocery shopping is. That's how long, like if I'm going on a run, it's probably around 30 minutes. Like that for me is like such a sweet spot. And then for YouTube videos, it is probably around 10 minutes for me. I think like I get a lot of good content from a 10-minute video. Anything longer, I'd go to Hulu or Netflix. Like by that point, I would rather watch like a documentary or something. Obviously there's like exceptions, like commentary videos where again, I could like kind of get up and walk around my house, like clean or something. But for videos that to sit down and watch, my attention span is totally 10 minutes on YouTube.
That's a good point in the way, because I have friends, like in the film industry and everything, and just like even the quick jump cuts in movies are just becoming shorter again to help people's attention. Also, it's like I saw like an author talk about on Twitter recently, you're not competing with other books, you're competing with every type of media, which has always been true, but just like as this media landscape gets bigger and it's democratized and involves everyone, like every user online, if you're a public user and you post, you're a creator or whatever. It's kind of like an overused word, but like you're competing with all this media. You're not just competing with books. Like it's affecting everything.
How do you think like that's going to impact the creator economy moving forward, or like creators as a whole? Like you said, in the movie industry, we've seen it impact things like jump cuts. Do you think a shorter attention span is going to affect the creators?
Well, I think it just goes back to what we were saying, people needing to adapt. In order to cater to the masses now, you have to cater to people who just want short-form content. Of course, there's still going to be people who want to utilize long-form content for a wide variety of reasons. But yeah, creators need to get accustomed to being more concise in their messaging. And hopefully in doing that, they don't take away value, though, because they're, of course, in longer form, there's a lot more nuance. And therefore, when there's more nuance, there's more value. So people have to become great storytellers in order for it to resonate in a way that's like healthy for humanity.
You've seen this impact too on things, including writing. I use like the Hemingway app, which is like a platform that you can use on your computer, and it basically teaches you how to write like Hemingway, who is really famous for writing short, sweet, concise things. And it just kind of, it's like Grammarly for making your stuff really short and sweet. Like I totally recommend it if people are trying to write like a newsletter maybe. And I'm like, whoa, this is kind of crazy. Like trying to write things super clear and concise versus like how you were taught in school to try to do like creative writing classes.
Meet
like,
the word count.
Yeah, exactly. Hit a word count. And I'm like, whoa, like how times have changed. Like I'm like, they really need to stop teaching kids to hit this word count and do a lot of these creative writings.
That's so true.
Because, I had to take writing classes in college, even though I was like a STEM major. And I was like, you know what would have been great as a writing class for a STEM major is to learn how to write these like short, concise pieces, because now like creative writing has not helped me. That has not helped me at all. Like nobody cares what color the sky is. They care what's happening with Netflix. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and the creator economy has just showed the type of messaging that people are compelled by. People who took over the writing spaces and just the media spaces before were, more highly educated, had gone to certain schools, and like the type of language a lot of people use in different books and everything, it's just like not appealing to the masses, and it's not easily understandable for the average person. There's also an element there, like how concise can you make it in a way that is like, it's not dumbing it down, it's not simplifying the information, it's just like, again, humanizing this information for as many people as possible to be compelled by it, so that these algorithms can pick it up and show it to your ideal audience as well. It's all weird.
It's funny how like we're seeing this too, like across all different types of industries. Like I mentioned this already, that I love Axios, and now that we're talking about it, one of the reasons why I really like them is everything's like a bullet format. So for example, like one of their newsletters that I love is called Pro Rata. It shows me all the recent venture capital raises that happened that they know of like that day. And all of them are done just in bullet point. And it's like, this company raised to this much, led by this person. And it tells me everything I need to know in like 2 or 3 sentences. And that's, for me, I absolutely love that. And I wonder if that's going to kind of move over into things that we see over like books, because I read a ton. Audiobooks, I do listen to it at 2 times speed. So I guess, or if I'm not listening at 2 times speed, it's definitely still sped up. I almost never listen to an audiobook not sped up. But for, which I guess that kind of already makes it a little bit more consolidated. So my brain is like keeping up with it. But for a book, like one that I'm physically holding, I don't read them on an iPad. I tend to just read them with paper and everything like that, annotate it. It takes a long freaking time. It takes a while. And I am reading a book right now. I think it's called Books. Here it is. It's like an ad. It's called The Confidence Game. But it's actually taken me like so. And Welch's wrapper is my bookmark. But it's taken me a long freaking time to get through the first, and I don't mind it at all. It's a really good book. Like highly recommend it. But it's taken me like probably like a week to kind of get through the first chunk of it, right? Which is a long time compared to like how I'm blasting through audiobooks. And like,
that's interesting. It's almost like, it's weird because like books have chapters, but like how like YouTube on podcasts has like every YouTube has to put chapter marks.
Yeah.
But it's like books have chapters, but it's like when it's fiction books, it's like you can't just like read certain chapter. I mean,
you can't skip around.
Yeah. And when it's nonfiction, you can kind of skip around. Like, I don't know, the storyline isn't always like crazy important, but that's interesting.
I bet you, and this is just like looking into the future, I bet you there's going to be, if this doesn't already exist, like basically like a Spark Notes, but still in written format for people like me who still like to read.
Just tweets in a book.
Yeah, like basically a book, be like, yeah, this is Pride and Prejudice, but like only like a 10-page version of Pride and Prejudice. Like this is what happens.
Tweet threadified.
Yeah, like a tweet threadified like version of classical books. And like I totally wouldn't be surprised if that happened. And maybe not for a book like where you're reading it for the craft of writing, because there is something to be said about reading a book for the craft of writing, which I totally understand and respect.
Yeah, I know, like writers.
I totally understand the craft of writing, and but I'm talking about for more informational books, which tends to be what I read. I'm not a huge unless it's like a sci-fi book. Like I don't know if I'd really read a sci-fi book that's been tweetified, but the informational books I'm talking about here, like to straighten it out. Like, that can't be that far away. Like, there's no way.
Well, that's why, video is the future is such large messaging. Because it's like, at the end of the day, it, like, keeps you stimulated visually and also, like, obviously psychologically when you're learning everything. And it is this weird thing of, like, people having to learn how to navigate video, even if they are writers or whatever, like, that is like the main way of communicating like across platforms right now. Everyone's trying to get their peek into video, and a company I work with often is Descript.
Oh, I love Descript.
And
I
they
love
have
them.
stats on like by 2030 how many hours a day we're going to be like watching or like immersed in video. It's literally like
it's
24 hours.
But TikTok though is like the app that does this the best, because you need to scroll through it. In order, you don't need to, I guess you probably can just, they loop if you keep it on. You need to scroll on it. So you need to look at the app. You need to be holding it. It really does engage you in all senses. And it's funny, like everybody wants like the most condensed version that gives you the full picture at the quickest way possible. And we've been seeing this a lot in efficiency, with journalism, where the increase in this like write first, edit later culture, where even news cycles, people are posting on the internet. And even though it might not be like the full story or accurate information, they just want to be the first to have it posted. And then once more information comes out, they can edit it later. And there's a bunch of different news sources that talk about this. I know Ryan Holiday has written a book that has gone over this like incredible amounts. So he's
it's like just go, no time for reflection or solitude. Like, and then it's like you're saying, these news sources that put stuff out, it's like they're just putting it out to be a part of the attention economy and have something out there for clicks. But like the information lacks value and nuance because they just
you faced this though, right? With like posting and people like commented before like, oh, you're late on stuff.
Oh, when it's like 48 hours later, just because I wasn't posting about something within the first 12 hours. Because like you can't do rigorous analysis of a topic or of a current event within that short of a time frame. Like if you are posting within the first 12 to 24 hours about something, it is a high emotion reaction. There's objective reporting, like, okay, what happened? Yes, that's fine, like objective reporting. But like if you can't do subjective reporting that is like diligent within that short of a time frame. Yeah. And promote the vast majority of topics. Yeah.
I completely agree with you. And do you think that's going to impact how young people, how our generation in particular, watches the news? Because I know that's something that we're both pretty interested in, like the latest tech news. Obviously, a huge portion of our podcast is about that. How do you think our generation in 10, 20 years is going to be consuming news?
Well, I think our generation right now is like, I have a lot of positives to say about our generation, but like, I don't know if the word's reactionary, reactive. There's too much high emotion online right now, and it's causing a lot of polarization, and like, not even just polarization, just like easy bullying and everything, because people don't care about the context. They care about how this information is memeified to them on the internet and like how entertaining it is. Everyone's like looking at things through an entertainment lens right now, which is disgusting, but it's becoming such an extreme that I think like we're slowly going to see like a peak soon and then like a 180 of people being like, this is not sustainable. And this is like terrible for my mental health is terrible for humanity's health. But right now, like we're seeing that like extreme on entertainment and memifying everything. It's just bad.
Yeah. I even think people that are like a little older than us and having kids, you're starting to see this like style of parenting where they're like taking their kids out to, maybe this also was in part during the pandemic and people having the ability to leave super condensed areas and live in more remote areas. But I've seen my friends a little bit older than me, my age, having kids and them being like, yeah, we do not want our kids exposed to like technology like we were. And I'm like, wow, this is so interesting because we're just now like seeing we're the generation that is having the effects of social media.
The guinea pigs.
Yeah. So that's super, super scary. And hopefully, in the next 10, 20 years, like we're talking about, we'll still be putting information out online. But I don't know if it will necessarily be in the forms of like, for you, short form content over on TikTok. For me, longer form content over in podcasting. I bet you it's going to be something like brand new that we haven't seen before. And I'm kind of excited to see what that's going to be.
It's definitely like, what is the next level of this all is interesting, which, feels like it's an immersive side of things. And immersive technology, like AI is democratizing a lot, but then like this more immersive technology it's expensive to get involved in. So like, I think we've seen such a discussion about independent creators over the past 3 years, like, oh, this growth of creators and independence, blah, blah. But I can see it easily, like when things are expensive, like the power goes back to the big players in the game and like institutions because they have the money to back people to thrive in these spaces. So like that's another interesting part of media right now because it's really democratized right now because like TikTok, you just film on your phone and you can post it and like it can be super casual, but like this immersive stuff, that's much more intense production.
I also see like creators, like you said right now, it's so easy. Like the barrier to entry is pretty low, but in a few years from now, I can totally see these becoming like agencies owning certain, like there was also Axel Weber is a TikToker that was like kind of accused of this, I believe, of coming from like an agency as a TikToker and like almost being planted. But basically, I think that the Disney kids, like how our generation had Miley Cyrus, Selena Gomez, like those people like as Disney employees kind of have like TikTok employees and have creators like come to the app and owned under an agency, obviously they'd get paid a lot less, but at least it would be consistent work. Maybe they could have benefits.
Yeah, more sustainability in the career.
Yeah. And I'm like, like, I think that's the next level of child acting. It's not mommy bloggers. It's not like Charlie D'Amelio like dancing on screen.
Kids.
Yeah, I think it's like agency-backed children on TikTok. So
TikTok Clubhouse. Mickey Mouse Clubhouse.
Yeah, Mickey Mouse Clubhouse. Oh my God, not to be confused with like the audio app.
Was that what it was? Like,
yeah, the Mickey, exactly what I'm talking about. Britney Spears, Justin Timberlake, all of them were part of the Mickey Mouse Clubhouse. Like there will be, I can see it now, a TikTok or whatever the social media platform is, Clubhouse. And that's scary. Like that's freaking, that makes me a little nervous.
There's a lot of conversations going on about sharenting right now, though. I don't really like know what the two words together are, but it's like all of them
sharing and parenting?
Yeah.
Like oversharing?
That's probably, yeah. I think we're going to see laws soon about kids on social media, which is like, I don't even think that's like an obvious.
Yeah,
I'm just
100%.
curious to what extent they'll be. Because it goes into the conversations we're talking about off camera, you don't have to have consent to record people in public, but now there's this conversation of what do you have consent to broadcast? And then the way that like news and like people on TV have to have waiver forms signed by people that they're featuring in media. Like, is that going to move on to social media? Because right now on these viral content platforms, like there are strangers again getting memeified and blasted across the internet that were not asked to do so as well. And it goes back into the sharenting thing of like, these kids they like to dance, whatever, but they don't have a say in what's posted about them online. They don't understand what a digital footprint is. And I don't think any of us understand the weight yet until something like we talked about in our last podcast, something bad happens and it's a wake up call for everyone of like the value of our data and the value of like our digital footprint. And it's going to be interesting.
That's really scary to think about, but hopefully, I was like, to end on a really negative, scary note. Jules, thank you so much for talking to me today. I think this is a really good conversation talking about where we could be going in the future. And like I say quite frequently, although I love having online friendships, IRL for me is definitely the way to go. I know this isn't your thing, but hopefully we can do this again soon.
I enjoyed it. Thanks, Rachel. And
awesome.
Thanks, everyone, for tuning in.
Thanks, guys. Bye.